Hey everybody, welcome back to a Fundamentals of Wood Carving video. It's a single video that is a part of many others that are collectively on my website, posted below. Fundamentals of Wood Carving School was started in March of actually it was April of 2020. And it's designed to take beginner carvers through intermediate projects into advanced projects, but it's also designed to take intermediate and advanced carvers as well, hopefully graduate them to more advanced projects, mostly focusing on the human face. But this is kind of a fun exception, a great horned owl. And the great Thomas Pawlowski filmed this, so thanks to him. If you notice an improvement in resolution and camera angles, it's because Thomas's handiwork. So again, I'm starting in a piece of Plains cottonwood bark. There's the finished piece, or at least a version of it, excuse me. It's a massive piece of cottonwood bark with, you can see the two fissures on the left and right side. And I had to do my best to fit the owl in between those two fissures. And so I was able to get sort of an angle or a turned position. I think that gives him more interest. You can see the little reference photo up above. His head position is turned so that his body is almost parallel with the right side of us, but his face is completely parallel to us. And so that gives you a feeling of movement, that he's kind of checking over his shoulder. And I like the way that looks. So I'm drawing out the major structures around the eyes, the feathered parts of the eyes and the beak kind of getting their main shape. I'm not too worried about anatomical proportionality here. Just so happens in this carving, I was kind of going with the reference photos that I found, and but not following them as though they are the rule. So I just sort of kind of stretched in a way. It's almost a caricaturized version of an owl. There's a bit of a squashed feel to it, which I kind of like. He's kind of hunkered down in his little hole. And that's exactly the effect that we're trying to achieve here by carving around the top and bottom of the owl and excavating away material underneath the transitions, so it looks as though the owl is hiding in this little kind of nook. And so you can see there on the right hand side that fissure leaves an exposed part of bark down by his feet where I'm drawing. I want to leave that raw and rough. So you'll see I'll do my best to stay away from that as I progress into the carving, which can be a little bit of a trick. Be easier to carve that away, but now I'm carving the dish shape of the eyes. Oddly enough, this is the same sort of thing I would be doing if it was a human face. The dish shape around either side of the nose, but in this case, beak. And now I'm kind of separating out the head from the body using a 20 millimeter or so, number 2.5, which is referencing the curvature of the blade. The 2.5 is not a very curved blade. And of course, the millimeter references the width of it. And so I like to use that tool a lot in tandem with a number 9 gouge that you're seeing there. That's a 15 millimeter gouge, slightly narrower. And just sort of hollowing out, separating the legs. I don't know if birds have thighs, but I know chickens do at least. But so I'm separating out his little legs, or thighs, if you will. I'm kind of carving down into this crook. You'll see that the feet will be partially revealed, but then I'll kind of be hollowing out beneath to give it the effect of him being stuck in a hole, or at least perching in a hole. Now I'm going around and kind of defining the edges of the feathers and the tufts. I always have this really unique feather pattern, which you would think would make them look angry. They have this angled brow, but it's a cute look. And this, of course, as I mentioned before, is a great horned owl. So it's actually a larger owl. And so This is not to scale. You can see next to my hand, it's probably closer to the size of a smaller owl. Maybe not the smallest of owls, but a medium-sized to small owl. Again, the great horned owl would probably be, in my guesstimation, and you owl experts out there can correct me, but I'm guessing twice the size of that. Which totally reminds me of the movie with Ben Stiller. I can't remember the name of it, where he has he goes to the mock-up of the sort of the model of a building that is to be built. He sees it, and when it's unveiled, he gets upset. This is he looks at the model and he goes, "The building needs to be at least 3 times this big." It's like really upset because the model isn't large enough. Anyway, you just got to see it. I'll think of it in a moment. So yeah, I'm just carving above the head. And kind of rounding the shape of the, coming underneath the ears, and the transition to the body. It's kind of giving me that rounded head, keeping in mind those ears are pointy, or horns. And so drawing in the eyes themselves, which are really substantial. Owls have to have a lot of surface area, big eyes to see at night, absorb all that light, big lenses. And so I'm going around with a 4mm Vayner and tracing around the eye. And then I'm going in with my favorite skew. I think CCM was what I remember them saying in regard to the brand of tool that skew is. Someone was asking recently. So going in with a V tool, carving around the eyes, separating the eyes from the lids, and of course cutting the upper eyelid that kind of doesn't quite bisect the ball of the eye, but it comes up about 1/3 of the way from the top. And the bag under the eye, again defining the feathers, all these little sort of details that are kind of fun to capture. Just really studying the reference photo here for the guides, or as a guide to find out where things should go. And going in with my Vayner. This is a really small Vayner. This is a 2mm Vayner. Might be a little bit larger than that, but not much. And using that in tandem with the 60-degree V tool. I love that little tool. Coming in, that's a Swiss made. Coming in, defining the beak. Actually had a little mishap with his beak. I think it chipped off at some point. And so I've had to kind of dig in to get more of that beak to come forward. But now I'm texturing the feathers with the V-tool and trying to get some layers. And you'll see I'll use the knife and a gouge or two to sort of get the texture of the feathers before I even think of detailing them. So kind of the typical rule of sculpture is you get the major shapes in first, and then you go in subsequently detailing them. And so using probably an oversized gouge for this. This is kind of a neat tool that I managed to find at an estate sale years ago, and was a part of an original set with many tools from the turn of the century, the 19th century, and some of which were from the early part of the 19th century. So obviously the toolkit of some carver from over 100 years ago. A lot of them English tools, but anyway, you going forward here with this same 60V tool and starting to get these kind of stacked feathers that come underneath the head, underneath the beak, and defining the pupils. And in this case, I kind of went with a hollowed pupil. So I went in with a gouge and I carved out the pupil. And I kind of like that effect. And so I'm kind of talking about the proportions and setup here, blah, blah, blah. All right, so I'm going back in with the details, really trying to refine everything. It's kind of a trick to know how much detail to give a bird. Their feathers, if you kind of get down at a macro level, you see so much detail in each feather, and so you have to kind of choose your battle wisely. Otherwise, you'll spend hours and hours focusing on little areas, and it won't yield as much of a benefit as you may think. So, well, power to you if that's what you'd like to do. But here I'm just kind of walking through the hollowing process, getting back behind to separate the owl from the background, which is important, especially in this case where I'm carving this owl so that he looks like he's hiding in a little cave or a little hole, his nest perhaps in a tree. So I've got a chip on my shoulder in this video. So I'm starting to get the details with the V. Actually, in that case, I'm using a 3mm Vayner. That's a number 11, just meaning that that's basically a gouge, a steep gouge, but with nice tall side walls. So it allows you to kind of get more depth with the tool. So I call that a Vayner. This is obviously sped up, and I've talked about it before, but in the original video, I kind of walk you through in real time the entire project and describe the tools used and how I go about setting up for and detailing the owl in this case, but in many cases the human face. The projects are centered around the human face because that's kind of my favorite thing to talk about. And here I'm blabbing again, so really helpful for us, right? So you can absolutely check out the school. The link is below, and no pressure, but it's a fun way of learning about carving. There's an online forum, that private forum that we use for folks to interact with me. If they have questions, they can, with their membership, they get access to me, and I help people post their carvings and I draw on them. So I'm thinking about setting some leaves in here in the side, kind of inconspicuous. They're hidden, or inconspicuously placed. And so I'm going to add a couple. I think I ended up adding a couple of feathers up above in that hollow area. If not, I textured. I try not to leave any flat spaces if I can in these sorts of carvings, these bark carvings. But so we're nearing the end here. I appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for watching.